My name is Nick Papadopoulos. I'm the Dean of Salisbury. I'm speaking to you from the south transept of the cathedral. It's pretty deserted at the moment. Visitors won't return to the cathedral until May. But throughout January, February and March of this year, the building has regularly been full of people. They have come here for a purpose that is unique in our 800-year history. When the news broke that vaccines for the COVID-19 virus would soon be available in late 2020, I made contact with our local NHS and said that if there was any way in which we could help with the implementation of the programme, then we would. The extraordinary team at our local primary care network responded positively and moved quickly. And on Saturday, the 16th of January, we opened our doors as a vaccination centre. And since that date, more than 20,000 of our neighbours have received their first injections here in the transept behind me. On the 26th of January, the New York Times carried 3 stories on its front page. The first concerned the impeachment of the former president, Donald Trump. The second concerned his successor's decision to allow trans people to serve in the US military. And the third disclosed that patients were being offered vaccinations here in Salisbury Cathedral. And the interest shown by the New York Times was picked up and replicated all around the globe. Now, by and large, things only make the news if they're unexpected or strange. Plainly, offering vaccinations on the floor of a cathedral was considered unexpected and perhaps even strange. And it's the assumption that underlies that, the assumption that operating as a vaccination centre is somehow foreign to our core purpose or our real business. It's that assumption that I would like to probe in this series of meditations for Passiontide. I'm offering them with the assistance of our brilliant cathedral photographer Ash Mills, upon 8 of whose images of that first vaccination day I am going to reflect. So, let us begin. A queue of people make their way along the north arm of the cloister, entering the south transept to receive their vaccinations. Like many others of the great medieval cathedrals of England, Salisbury was once a place of pilgrimage. Today we have a rather romantic notion of pilgrimage, a romantic notion of middle-aged men and women setting off on the Camino to Santiago de Compostela and on the journey finding themselves. They stride through the landscape day after day, the horizon continually receding before them. And it's as they travel that they discover who they are or who God believes them to be. The arrival of the pilgrim at the destination is almost an afterthought. The work has been done on the journey. But, of course, in the classical era of pilgrimage, famously written up by Chaucer in the Canterbury Tales, journeys were very difficult and very dangerous. You travelled at your peril, quite literally. That's why Chaucer's pilgrims are in such a large group. There is security in numbers. The journey wasn't a romantic affair at all. It was something that had to be endured if the real purpose of the pilgrimage was to be realised. And the real purpose of the pilgrimage was the destination. Pilgrimages to Canterbury, or to Walsingham, or to Salisbury were made because of what was hoped for on arrival at the shrines of the saints. Thomas in Canterbury, Osmond here in Salisbury. At the shrines of the saints, pilgrims entered a place where somehow heaven and earth met in the life of a holy man or a holy woman. And pilgrims entered believing that their proximity to that juncture of heaven and earth would be valid for their prayer, and very often valid for their prayer for healing. People went on pilgrimage because they sought healing of body and healing of mind. In our picture, people are coming like those pilgrims. They are the most elderly, most vulnerable of our neighbours, and they are coming to their cathedral to be made well, to be protected against the virus that has played havoc with their lives for 12 months. They are coming to their cathedral expecting to find here healing and protection and peace. And most of them are coming in pairs. Carers pushing chairs, or couples helping one another. There is security in numbers, even for today's pilgrims. It's difficult to take a photograph of Salisbury Cathedral which does not reveal its beauty. This image, taken at an unusual angle and from an unusual level, certainly does. The remarkable thing about all the great medieval cathedrals is that they were built not to draw attention to themselves. I often say to visitors that the spire is not there by accident. It's a great big arrow pointing upwards, encouraging all who see it to lift their gaze heavenwards. Cathedral buildings exist to distract us from our self-obsession and to point us towards God. Approach the cathedral and you will see your woes, see your worries, your troubles in proportion. They are real and they may be substantial, but step into the cathedral and you will see them in proportion to the eternity of God. Look at the human figures on the floor. They are tiny. It's not that they don't signify, it's not that at all, but it's that they take their place within God's providential care of all things. Salisbury Cathedral is a place of proportion. We come in and we sit, and we know that whatever burden we've brought with us, here it can find a home, because the columns, arches, and vaults around us speak of eternity. I'm no architect, but if I were looking to design a building for a clinic, maybe I would come up with something which tried to achieve the same effect. A place which takes the worry, takes the concern, takes the pain, and puts it into proportion, which assures the patient that here their worry, their concern, their pain is not out of place, which assures the patient that here they will be heard, and here their fear will be addressed. The cathedral teems with creativity. One of the statistics that we often quote is that it was very largely built in 38 years. What a miracle of design and of artistry and of engineering. Our commitment to creativity remains at the core of what the cathedral is. Here, we look down the length of the nave, but in the foreground, the font is visible, the beautiful work of the sculptor William Pye, installed in the cathedral in 2008. Hanging at the spire crossing, glimmering in the light, is our Nativity banner, which was unfurled for the first time at Advent and Christmas in 2019, the work of Ash Mills and of our arts curator Jacqueline Creswell. Patients are sitting in the nave because they've received their vaccine and they are required to sit still for 15 minutes afterwards. They're also enjoying music from the Father Willis organ, which is being played for their entertainment. Salisbury Cathedral still nurtures gifts of creativity among children and adults. The creativity of musicians, the creativity of stonemasons, the creativity of artists, the creativity of web designers. We do so because one of the earliest things we learn about God is that God is the creator. When we discover our own creative gifts and use them, then we are joining in his work. This is a place which embodies and displays and honors the very best in the imaginative restlessness of the human spirit. So should it not also be a place where the extraordinary ingenuity that has culminated in the COVID vaccine is honored and celebrated and put to work? Just as the skill of the medieval masons was tested in the building of the cathedral, just as the skill of our masons today enhances the building and keeps it standing, why would we not here honor the prodigious talent that has developed the vaccine in record time? This is a temple to creativity, but to all sorts of creativity. Surely, this spectacular achievement should be celebrated and implemented within walls which have seen so much brilliant creativity in the 800 years that they have been standing. Memorials to past struggles fill the walls of the cathedral. The sacrifice of former generations is honoured in tablets and plaques dedicated to the fallen of almost every war of the last 2 centuries. I'm always moved by the standards that hang at the west end of the nave. The earliest of them, of which very little is left, were carried in the war with the newly independent American colonies early in the 19th century. The most recent of them bear witness to the conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan. The flag you can see in this picture hangs over the place where injections are administered. It is the white ensign flown on HMS Salisbury, given to the cathedral in 1956. So much of the furnishing and the ornamentation of the building bears witness to human self-sacrifice, to the extreme lengths to which men and women have been prepared to go in pursuit of their duty, to the ultimate price that they have been prepared to pay. It has been impossible to live through the pandemic and to resist comparisons with the Second World War. It was a hero of that generation who emerged as the new hero of what has regularly been described as the greatest crisis since, Captain Sir Tom Moore. We have spoken repeatedly about Blitz spirit. Her Majesty the Queen addressed the country on Palm Sunday 2020 and drew parallels with the endurance of earlier generations. We celebrated the 75th anniversaries of VE Day and VJ Day when we were still in lockdown. There are so many connections. It seems right, doesn't it, that the great national fight back against our new common foe, the COVID virus, should take place in this building. Where else should it take place? This is a house of prayer, but it is also a place of record. The trials of our ancestors have made their mark upon the stonework. In our time, we have too. During my ministry, I've often had cause to be thankful to the vast array of sacristans and vergers, of flower arrangers and servers, the army of those who attend to the practicalities of worship and to the dignity of worship, who make it possible for worship to happen. When I was a curate in Portsmouth, our sacristan, Joy, would deliver the freshly pressed linen to the church every Friday morning without fail. When I was a vicar in central London, our verger, Douglas, would prepare for the daily Eucharist. Sometimes I would catch him laying out the silverware and setting out the communion wine and so on. He did it with a quiet reverence and dignity. It was plainly his way of worshipping, his expression of devotion, his articulation of discipleship. The same is true of countless others, of church flower arrangers and coffee rota volunteers, of those who mend clergy robes. The list goes on and on. I was reminded of that great army of people when I saw this picture and saw the meticulous way in which the vaccination stations have been prepared. Look at the precision and the uniformity of this line of cathedral tables, the array of blue screens all neatly labelled, the array of yellow sharps bins, the array of Anglepoise lamps, the array of green packets of wipes, the array of laptops with those stationed at them. As I looked at them, I thought of Joy and Douglas and of the care that goes into the preparation of our worship. And I thought too of those NHS staff who have laid this clinic out with identical love and with identical concern for their space. I was reminded that in all our different walks of life, there are those who lavish devotion upon the place of work and give meticulous care to its preparation, and that this is, for many, the expression of a calling. You've already seen the Nativity banner, which is hung at the spire crossing at Christmas. It holds before all who see it a picture of the union of heaven and earth. That union is what comes about in the birth of Jesus. God, the creator of all that is born among us, and the angels gather around because heaven has come to earth. And in that coming, in the birth of Jesus, hope is realized for all of us. And it really is for all of us. The Vaccination Centre opened in Epiphany, the time in the Church's year when we remember that. The Magi can be seen on the left of the banner, and they represent all of us, the peoples of the whole earth. Hope is for all. Of course, that's exactly what the vaccinations are. They are for all people. We must hope and pray, and if necessary, campaign for a just global distribution of the benefits. But what has brought hope and life to our communities after the year we've all endured? The availability of vaccine. Just as the hanging offers the promise of hope, so in the most tangible way possible in this season, the injections being administered underneath it are bringing hope to the people God loves in 2021. St. Michael's Chapel is on the eastern side of the south transept. Behind the doctor, who is in the forefront of this picture, you can see a double arch with a yellow curtain. That yellow curtain screens the locked door of the Aumbry from public view. The Aumbry is the place where week by week the Blessed Sacrament, the consecrated bread of Holy Communion, is reserved. A lamp burns before it. It is a place for private prayer and devotion, and it is also the place from which the sacrament is taken to those who are sick or housebound. We believe that in consecrated bread and wine, God gives himself to us for our sustenance in life and for our growth in faith. This is a holy place. What you can't see in this picture is that just to the right of the Aumbry, just out of shot, stand two fridges, plugged in and locked up. The fridges are there for the storage of the precious vaccines. So, in Holy Communion, God takes the things of earth, bread and wine, and makes them channels of his healing presence, channels of his grace. We who receive them for our good, for our growth in faith and hope and love. Now, just alongside them, stored behind locked doors, are other earthly elements that human hands have taken and that we receive for our healing. Holy means set apart, doesn't it? Set apart for a special purpose. Here, in two places, cheek by jowl, we see the gifts of God's loving wisdom, gifts set apart for the wholeness and well-being of the people to whom he is irrevocably, irretrievably, eternally committed. This is one of our local GPs. He's not praying, he's attending to someone. But look at him. He's humbling himself before his patient. He is fixing all his attention upon his patient. Look at where his eyes are traveling. He's wanting only what is good for his patient. And in that humility, in that attentiveness, and in that longing for the good, I wonder if in what we see between doctor and patient, we have something to learn about what it means to pray. Here, another doctor is about to administer an injection to her patient. I used to be a criminal lawyer. One of the bits of useless information that I retain from those days is that a wound is a break in the skin. So every injection is a wound. But of course, the wound that we receive when we receive an injection is a wound that is for our healing. Behind the doctor and her patient is one of Craigie Aitchison's depictions of the crucifixion. It is an image of a man who has been wounded in his hands and feet and head. He has received those wounds not for his benefit, but for ours. By his wounds, we are healed. By the wound we receive here, we are healed. I have never been in any doubt that hosting the Vaccination Centre has been exactly what Salisbury Cathedral should be doing at this time in this place. I believe it is a work of the kingdom of God, the healing and protection of the people God loves, regardless of their age, their race, their faith, their social origin, or whatever. We in the church tend to get a bit nervous about what our future is, or what our purpose is, or whether anybody still loves us. I've been reassured to discover in these months how closely our values and our habits are aligned with those of our new colleagues and friends in one of the country's best loved institutions, the National Health Service, quite rightly applauded from our doorsteps night after night during the first lockdown. And I've been delighted to receive countless messages of gratitude and appreciation that Salisbury's cathedral was here when Salisbury's people needed it. There is a very welcome conversation running in our society about building back better after the pandemic, about refusing to return to just the way we were before it. Ash's pictures and our experience here have sharpened those questions for us. I don't pretend to have the answers for them. But in the first quarter of 2021, we have seen our building and our life afresh through others' eyes. These months interrogate our vocation to serve, our vocation to pray, our vocation to be holy. And these are questions, I suspect, not just for us, but for the whole Church of God. What is it that the Lord is saying to his people in these days? Thank you for joining us. May God bless you richly.